the wait is over. Every single week, we'll be bringing you guys weekly analysis, EUGU, DXY, reviewing my week, looking at where the best moves are at. This is the place to be if you want to get learning and progress as traders together, especially in the funded realm. I want to be helping other people getting funded, and I want people to share their journeys along with me. So it's the perfect place to be now. You'll be seeing these every Friday or Saturday. Today's a Thursday. Bring this out over the weekend. My week's done. I think as you could see at the start of the week, there was a lot of pressure on a lot of news events. There was elections today for pound. Probably the biggest news event you're going to get in years. So being inside GU at the start of the week was really the only time to trade it. USD bank holiday today. Low volume. NFP tomorrow. We've had a variety of news events over this week. So when you're trading funded accounts, especially on Alpha, can you really trade them if you've got limits set and you're going to get tagged in with news events? It's a difficult one. I mean, to say where we're at overall, I've got to admit, there's just a lot of stuff that's been going on. And overall, if you look at the week, I started on drawdown on FTMO and Alpha accounts. I've took one win on GU, one loss on EU. I've ended up not being able to trade my funded account, but I have achieved the profit split there from Monday, so I got paid out. All the problems have been settled now, of course. And then we've got down another win, so down 3% now on phase 2. I'm down 5% on phase 1. On FTMO, I am up on phase 2 a little bit, and I'm down, well, I'm break even on phase 1. I think the thing to say is I missed GU on Alpha for the reason that, I mean, price spiked 4 or 5 pips above my entry at a news point, didn't tag me in. Not much you can do about it. FTMO triggered me in. Again, I say it all the time, FTMO is the best. Alpha, on multiple occasions now, have taken me out or not taken me in of trades due to slippage. So they're not as good. But sometimes you can't have any influence over that. That would mean that this account and this account would be in profit because I did take that win, but they didn't get triggered in. And of course, my funded account, I couldn't trade till Tuesday, which I didn't take any trades past Monday. So it's funny how things work, and today I would be due a payout if I could have made profit, but I didn't. So we'll have to wait another 2 weeks now to see if I can make profit. That's the reality of trading. I don't want to go too far to say that even EU that lost did run into profit, and my equity, in fact, on my phase 2 was at 104,800, is $200 off being passed. Now I'm back near break even. So that is what happens sometimes, and it's disappointing. And you want it to move that tiny bit more, but it didn't. And again, you've got to go back from almost zero now. But last week I was in drawdown on these. So now I've clawed these back a little bit. I am better on FTMO than I am on Alpha. FTMO costs more money to pay for. So overall, I've come out of the week just around 1.5 hour profit. And I'll take that any day of the week. But as you can see, you might think you're trading 2 funded accounts at the exact same time. The challenge is you'll get different results by setting the exact same alerts limits on these trades. But let's go through the week. Not an easy one at all. I think there's a variety of things to talk about and discuss. The uncertainties around price. If we're going to mark in this 104 level, we can see that price was holding above that. We have previous yearly highs up here. So we know that's previous yearly high. We've got that in. We've got the current yearly high, which is up here, I believe. Yep. So you can already start mapping out, if we look at this, that we're coming up to highs here. We're coming up to highs in DXY, and we're within this unmitigated wick. You can't get much information off this apart from the fact that, yet, if we're going to continue bullish, we've got a weekly fair value gap we could pull back to. We've got previous weekly low. What do we say about this candle? This candle closed weak bullish. It's a doji candle. It's showing indecision. It doesn't have the strength to penetrate through this weekly. We may have to come deeper and break the previous weekly low. But at the same time, we may just push straight through it. I'd rather look on the daily to get some more information off this. But at the minute, I'm still bullish until otherwise. I'd want to see a clear weekly rejection candle to give myself that bearish bias. But on the daily, it's quite clear on the DXY there. We've had 3 rejections to this weekly. Therefore, I would be saying, yeah, okay, we're probably going to need a pullback. Ideally, I would want to see previous weekly low taken out, but sometimes you don't always get that. We can see that we do have this daily fair value as well that we've previously held. Will we come back down into this previous weekly low or not? That's to be decided, but I would say at the start of the week, we're probably looking for a pullback to continue the bullish trend. EU, if we get rid of all of this, where do I even start with EU? It's a crazy hard week. I don't know what charts you guys use, FXCM, Oanda. You have a few others, main two are FXCM and Oanda. I use Oanda on the basis that there's no gaps. Generally, you don't get gaps on Oanda. It's very rare. This week presented a gap, caused a variety of problems. But we spoke about in the end of last video that on EU, if we're going to struggle to the downside, I want to see previous weekly high taken. We know that we have liquidity down here. And I think the consensus has been that we've been bearish, but we don't know where we're going to end up failing at. I would have guessed down here, but sometimes it doesn't. You can see from previously when we've come down, we were trending down a little bit. We never tapped into this order block at all. We ended up just seeing upside from there. So we have to keep in mind that the candle did close bullish. From my general oversight, I would initially be looking at a previous weekly high break. If we're looking at liquidity and we took out these lows, I would say this candle's closed and could be a future order block. I'd want to see the high taken. We still haven't come into this weekly. So therefore I'd be looking at, okay, we still haven't come up into this. This has just been formed. We failed to really continue down from the point we formed that. Therefore, the weekly fair value gap's probably going to get hit. So my prediction is price will run up and I'd be looking for a sell higher up. We discussed that because there was tons and tons of liquidity. There's equal highs here and there's liquidity here. But if we mark this all out as liquidity, it makes it easier. And overall, I was looking at getting in a sell off somewhere up here. Because that candle didn't close very weak, I was still expecting price to run down because we're bearish and hold the weekly fair value gap. That was a good assumption to make, and that would assume that DXY would continue bullish. It was annoying and a bit frustrating that we did gap to start the week and it changed analysis a little bit and I wasn't too sure on how to take it, but we'll get to that in a minute. But that's the markup. I'm expecting price to come up, take this, fill this gap, come down, and then more than likely find a reaction off this. We don't know yet. But overall in this area, we're still forming lows, highs, lows, highs. We took out this low, so we are still trending downwards for the minute. We would look to see that's a bit of a consolidation period though. And as for GU, if we go to it, I would have to say my bias has been a bit influenced over DXY. Rather than looking at what the candles are actually doing. I think there's an important thing to note that with this new level I've added in, a key level around 128, we know that price likes to generally really hold below it at the minute. We never see price hold above it until we see a support formed above it in the way that price will respect and hold candles, which we haven't seen here. And this is where I talk about, look, I'm somewhat an SMC trader, but I understand that if we can't hold candles above here and we're getting fake outs, I still look at price the way I used to in the way that we need to see levels, key levels, be respected and held above. We can't always look at POIs when we're looking at the weekly time frame and above. We need to look at key price levels that hold the market. So if we look at, we like to hold below 128. We saw price come up and we failed at this level. There's no other POI to the left that we had an issue at here. Therefore, once we see this big reaction, and I think this is where I got caught out a little bit, we see this big rejection wick. I would assume then that we need to come and fill. We need to fill this weekly. I spoke about it in previous weeks that until we close below this, we can see, if anything, we're a bit more bullish. If we were to fib this up, we come in off this order block. Therefore, until we engulf this fair value gap, we're more bullish and the downside is limited. But I've got caught out too much in not realizing that 2 weeks in a row now, we've not seen any decisiveness in price after seeing this, and we've trickled down to fill half the weekly and held it. That's not the best for downside overall. But saying that, I was looking for the weekly fill, and I was marking up previous weekly high, and the weekly time frame was expecting that to be taken to get us to come down. Why? Because this is not a buy confirmation candle. It's a weak candle with a big rejection wick. I'm expecting that to be an order block for us to continue down. And we know we have future areas down here to target as well if we want to see downside. So that was my prediction. Maybe I look back and say maybe should be a bit more bullish on GU overall, but it's hard to when everything's looking pretty good and it's all lining up. And that's where I do take influence over DXY, and it's usually not too bad to be doing that. But let's see how we started the week. I'm going to kind of go through Monday and skip the candle, but want to mark up the higher time frame positions I had set. What I did was had the same zone as the previous week on EU. I wanted to see price run into the start of this 3 hour. That's it, 3 hour order block, fair value gap. Fair value gap there. We're looking at a sell with a 35 pip stop, allowing it to pierce the weekly a little bit to come down. Target the lows. This is my idea. If we look at how we started and gapped up, this is where my analysis was slightly altered. That I would see this gap as being the candle closed here, but when it opens here, the candle almost has closed here. With a candle closing that bullish, I would not want to be taking a higher time frame play off it. Yet, I got a bit starstruck with how price was moving. And with a stronger bullish close, should not have been taking a sell up in that area really. I think the key important level is the fill. Now, these levels that have gapped, they usually come back and fill at some point. Sometimes it is very early in the week. Sometimes it doesn't come back for weeks, but we know this level is going to be important, right? So I'm just going to put fill. So we know that's an important level. Problem I've got is I'm tagged in this position now. We ideally want to see the DXY come and take previous weekly low. We never do that. On GU, the idea for a sell was still there from the basis that I missed my sell last week off this order block. So what we've got down here is a potential for price to hit the order block. I'm going to have my stop just above the daily, and we're looking to target the low originally. Looking back on analysis from how we started the week, I've moved it and made this an equal low and decided that targets down here would make more sense because of the gap. So look, we didn't gap as much on GU, which doesn't really make this candle close if we closed here much bigger for the upside. And I still predicted that would be enough for us to come down. Therefore, looking back, EU was too big of a weekly close for a sell play. I always have influence over the weekly closures to decide if a higher time frame play is possible. And as for GU, I've just gone and took them both. But GU looked better. It looked way better. And you can see what Monday did there. We come into this order block, and this has to be the best trade I've caught. And what happened was with news is we've been tagged in by news. So already on my funded account, I can't take this trade because it's 2 minutes within the news tapping me in. So that wouldn't have counted. You can see though, price fell beautifully off it. Coming to Tuesday morning, we caught the exact move, literally to the almost the pip before we reversed, and the trade would have ended up losing here. And that's all really I had in play there was the higher time frame move. But if we go back to how Monday finished, GU was looking pretty good. EU even was looking pretty good, but we knew this fill would be a problem. DXY is closed bullish. So one thing to keep in mind was the lows were never taken. This needs to go up. This candle needs to go up. We need to take out these highs on Tuesday. What do? We failed. Where did price fail at on the daily? Nowhere. This isn't a good sign for the trades, to be honest. It's showing that price is struggling and we need to come and take out these lows. I mean, liquidity is just so important. You can't ignore it. EU, Tuesday filled this gap. I'm still in this trade. At this point, I should have been closing out. I feel like I should have used my intuition there and not held this trade. And I wouldn't look back and say I should have got out there. I wanted to give price a chance because sometimes it doesn't have to take liquidity. But I've noticed on DXY, there's periods of times where liquidity is more important and it needs to be taken during now, the last few months. But if you go back to the start of the year, you would see price not take liquidity and still continue. So it's the phase of the market that you're in and you've got to adapt to it, which I knew we probably needed to come and take that. And I've still held this trade when you're now getting bullish confirms on the daily time frame. And then whereas GU, you know, again, you're getting bullish confirms. If that's my play and this is my sell for the week, I mean, I've caught the move. I don't need to trade GU anymore this week. There's no medium time frame plays from what I can see. I Probably should have been looking for buys on EU on this day, but once again, we just saw price run straight up, take me out of my sell, and that's a loss. And that's why it hurts a little bit, because I've only executed on alpha on EU, whereas GU's been tagged in on FTMO, and it would have overall resulted in some good profit, but you just couldn't always predict if price is going to tag you in for a limit. And that's why news events often do give me an entry, and that's why news events are nothing to be scared of, because it's very volatile. But if you've got a limit set, it allows you to be tagged in at a comfortable price, as long as stop loss is set higher or lower than where you get in and you're comfortable with that stop loss. You should always give that a go. Generally, you might get slipped a few pips here and there, but it's nothing crazy, especially on these dollar pairs. You don't get slipped massively. If you're trading GJ, on the other hand, you can get slipped pretty hard. Gold, even silver, these are the things to worry about a bit more if you're trading these assets. But yeah, we just saw clear failures here on DXY, and it was obvious previous week we know it needs to be taken out. And then that's the end of the week. There's not really anything to say about trying to trade now. The week is done. You've got no volatility in the dollar realistically today, and the pound is going to potentially do something crazy later on. And if we do see Labour get in, I would predict would drop on pound dollar. Massive shake-up in the overall government in the UK. That wouldn't be a good thing, I wouldn't assume. There's a lot of uncertainty that comes with that. Whereas EU, it just looks like it wants to go up. And the prediction for the week was kind of wrong, but off the weekly close, not off the gapped open price. So that's something to take into account. Sometimes you don't have to get the week analysis spot on. I've still come out the week in profit, but sometimes the challenge accounts don't show that, and now I've got to claw back some drawdown, hopefully, within the next couple of weeks. But there's no rush for me to do that. Of course, I was very close to passing that phase 2, and everyone's got to know how that feels. It's not now for me to go and chase that phase 2 account. I'm just going to trade it as usual, 1.5% risk. And because EU didn't win, I didn't deserve to win that trade. We didn't come down to the lows. My prediction was wrong. If I got took out, which would have been here, this was where I would have been tagged out of phase 2 if price ran down to here, and it missed by 3 pips. And I always knew that gap would be a problem. I always knew it. Like, deep down I knew it, but I'm not going to close out there. To be honest, I could have, and I would have been up 4%, 4.5% on phase 2, but I didn't. And there are decisions that you make sometimes that aren't good, and it's not about being perfect. I say it in every video. You're making calculated decisions in the moment that always, in hindsight, you look back on and you think, why did I do that? But you just never know how to take things in that moment. And I'd sometimes be careful looking back in hindsight and thinking that you made a massively wrong decision, when really it was just a tiny judgment that could have realistically gone either way. It really could have. But you set a target. If it doesn't hit your target, you're wrong. And I accept that. GU, changing my target was lucky. I got taken out. I would have took another loss. So I'm really grateful for how the week went. There could have been a lot more problems this week. And sometimes you get a lucky scapegoat in the market. You don't quite get all the losses you're supposed to. My analysis was originally to the low, and I'd be sitting in now another loss. I would have also been looking for a potential option on GU during this day when we didn't tap the low. You can see I had a medium time frame trade set up basically here. Was waiting for price to come into this 1 hour order block, and once we took out that, take off this trade for the sell. Previously, if that was my low target, I would have been holding this trade for it to come up and take me into that sell. So very lucky there. But yeah, it was a good week, and start of July up for profit an hour. Don't want to take too many negatives from it because it was a hard week and there was so much volatility. Sometimes it's good to sit out of the market in the weeks that are like this and sit on your hands, especially in the summer where there's lower volume on the days that there's no news. But yeah, we're rolling these out live now, so you'll be able to see how your week was compared. Did you have that bullish bias on the dollar pairs? Did you look for downside on DXY? Or were we all caught out? Were we all fooled a little bit about where we were heading? But going into next week, I would be assuming on the DXY, we're seeing bearish candles. We're in this gap. Yeah, potentially could hold this gap, but realistically, I like price to hold below 104. So we'll see if we can break through this. If we can break through this for the week, great. so much time left with NFP. We could still close weak. Therefore, be looking to probably still come and test the current yearly high, with these dollar pairs really needing to be holding below this weekly to still have any kind of bearish bias. Otherwise, be looking back to come and fill into this wick, unmitigated wick on EU. And then on GU, I'll be looking to come and take out that high minimum. Current yearly high sitting up there as well. But 128 could get broken. And if we do, got to be careful. Let's see us try and hold above that. But yeah, good stuff. I'll leave it there. But we'll come back next week stronger. Just got to take what we see. And yeah, we'll see what happens next week. So okay, guys, peace out.